Support for this podcast comes from the Central Valley Journalism Collaborative, connecting communities with the resources, infrastructure, and networks to ensure a vibrant local free press.
From KVPR in Fresno, this is Central Valley Daily. It's Tuesday, September 17th. I'm Elizabeth Arkalian. Coming up, Fresno's interim police chief, Mindy Casto, has now been the city's top cop for over 3 months.
When I took over, it really was just keeping the train on the tracks. Things were going well.
Coming up in just a few minutes, we'll have a conversation with Chief Casto. But first, today's headlines. More than a year ago, a production worker at a poultry plant in Sanger drowned in an open chicken waste pit. As KVPR's Rachel Livenall reports, an investigation found the death could have been prevented.
A report by the Work Safety Branch of the CDC says Jesus Salazar Castillo became incapacitated by toxic fumes emanating from the open pit. It contained a mixture of water and chicken organs, blood, feathers, and other waste products. After losing consciousness, Castillo fell in and drowned. This happened at Pittman Family Farms back in May of last year. The CDC report said the plant lacked training on chemical safety and had damaged or missing equipment at the facility. An investigation by the Fresno Bee revealed at least 4 deaths have happened at the facility in the last 8 years. For KVPR News, I'm Rachel Livenall.
A Fresno jury ruled Monday that the former Parlier police chief was wrongfully terminated. Chief Jose Garza was fired reportedly for refusing to end an embezzlement investigation brought on by a city employee. According to GV Wire, who was in court for the ruling, the civil trial was part of several actions taken against the city by Garza following his termination in 2021. Garza sought over $1 million in damages. The jury mostly voted unanimously on the complaints. State energy officials warn Californians will soon see higher gas prices during another annual cost spike. Cap Radio's Laura Fitzgerald reports.
Officials with the Department of Petroleum Market Oversight expect gas prices to spike this month, especially in Northern California. This is due to oil refinery maintenance, which slows production and makes gas less available. Department Director Ty Milder says crude oil prices are decreasing, so gas should be cheaper to produce. But dwindling fuel inventories are having the reverse effect.
This is basic supply and demand. We're losing supply, and this happens in a pattern. It's happened the last 3 years around this time, when there's strong demand, and so the prices go up.
This warning from the Oversight Department comes just as the Assembly prepares to consider Governor Gavin Newsom's proposal aimed at lowering gas prices. It would require oil refiners to keep a minimum inventory of fuel to prevent shortages and ultimately cost increases. Milder says the department supports the plan, but some Republican lawmakers, like Assemblymember Joe Patterson of Roseville, say price spikes are a result of California's overregulation, not price gouging. He thinks his constituents feel the same.
They don't blame the oil companies because they know it's a result of our taxes and our policies in California.
Assembly lawmakers are scheduled to begin hearings on the proposal later this week. In Sacramento, I'm Laura Fitzgerald.
A partial lunar eclipse is happening tonight. It's part of a, quote, celestial trifecta because at the same time, a supermoon and a blood moon will be visible. A partial eclipse occurs when the Earth casts a partial shadow on the moon. As a supermoon, it's the closest the moon is to Earth, and it's considered a blood moon because it will have a reddish-brown color. Unlike a solar eclipse, onlookers do not have to wear any safety gear to watch. According to NASA, the best time to see the eclipse will be about 7:40 p.m. this evening.
KVPR is in the midst of our fall membership campaign. We're public media, and that means we rely on listeners like you to fund everything we do, from podcasts like this one to news on our website and radio broadcasts on 89.3 in Fresno and 89.1 in Bakersfield. Support local journalism in your community with a donation now. Go to kvpr.org/donate to become a member today.
And now to our main story. Every year, the Fresno Police Department tries to engage with the community to increase trust among officers and residents. One of the ways is through events like Neighbors Night Out. Interim Chief Mindy Casto has worked for the department since 1997 and has been serving as the city's top cop for just over 3 months after former Chief Paco Balderrama's resignation. Chief Casto joined me for a conversation to talk about Neighbors Night Out and where the department stands today.
A department isn't fully functional or operating optimally unless it has a good connection with the community. They help us to solve crimes. We help to keep them safe. And so Neighbors Night Out is a way to build connections, new ones, maintain old ones, and just get to know the people living and working in the Fresno community.
How has the perception of police changed over time in your view, especially with your experience at so many of these events? Do you think the police has changed its approach to serving the community in that time?
It's much more widespread now, just the community policing aspect. But in my opinion, Fresno PD's been doing this again, going way back as far as I can remember, over 30 years in the 90s. Here, it's been a tradition. We've had a very strong neighborhood watch for many years, and we put a lot of resources and effort into building connections with the community, bringing broken neighborhoods back to life, just all across the city. We have different endeavors trying to build those connections. And in fact, in every policing district, we have a community service officer assigned to specifically do community outreach and activities with the community and make connections. In addition to the community service officers we have out there actually taking calls for service and working with the public.
In 2023, crime numbers in Fresno actually decreased across the board, including the number of shootings, down by 20% compared to 2022. How have things looked so far this year?
Well, we're down over 40% in our number of shootings this year from last year. And last year, as you mentioned, was over 20%, a fantastic decrease. And that means that many more families that don't have to deal with the victimization and all the trauma and trouble that comes along with that in their family and the worry and the sadness. So we're really, really pleased. And it's certainly by no accident. Now, crime does somewhat have a pattern that goes up and down, and we do impact it. Absolutely. That's our job. We're thankful to be on the downward trajectory in our shootings right now. And it's just through the really a lot of hard work, not just out being proactive. It's working with community groups like Advanced Peace. It's working with our 34 student resource officers in the schools. It's our MAGIC team, our multi-agency gang enforcement consortium, which is just world class as far as gang enforcement and working to gather intelligence, not just go out and make traffic stops and contacts.
What about other crimes? I know retail crime's been on a lot of people's minds, and even violent crimes. What are some other statistics that kind of stand out to you right now?
Murder, we're even with last year, but we had a very low year last year, so that's still a win. Well, I will give you one of our struggles is auto theft, and it's really primarily driven by Kias and Hyundais. There's a nationwide trend, and it's young people stealing them for joyriding. But when I first took over as interim chief, we were up over 70% from last year. I want to say 78%. We've brought that down. It's still an increase over last year, but we're down into the 30%. And that's been through, again, no accident. We're trying to get community people to realize what kind of vehicles are at risk. And we've been passing out steering wheel locks at every community event, every community center, everywhere we can kind of get an audience. But the visual deterrent of the auto anti-theft device is also really helpful to help us drive those numbers down, in addition to the enforcement and the apprehension and prosecution.
As you mentioned, you've been in this role for a few months now, and just to get the audience up to speed, you took this position after former Chief Paco Balderrama stepped down following an investigation into an affair he had with a fellow officer's wife. You were part of the department already for many years when all this was happening. What's your approach to kind of handling this aftermath as you've become interim chief? What are kind of your goals, and where do you go from here?
Well, the department was in good shape. I mean, we've had a few years of tremendous growth, and that's fantastic. When I took over, it really was just keeping the train on the tracks. Things were going well. Now we're looking to streamline a few things. I mean, my big goal is obviously keep violent crime down, but also try to enhance our service levels in different ways through technology. We're really good at emergencies. We really need to work on some of our non-emergency responses.
In another interview shortly after you accepted the role, I know you spoke a lot about rebuilding trust within the force, rebuilding trust within the community. How's that going? How's morale? And have you seen any kind of actionable steps that have helped you forward that mission?
And it helps to be, have grown up in the agency and to know most of our employees. I mean, we have a lot of young people that I don't know, but the feedback I'm getting, it's positive that people feel calm and steady, and everybody's working really hard to accomplish their missions, and they just have confidence that the agency's in good hands. And it's not a knee jerk or a 180 spin, with leadership change. Chief Balderrama did a good job. It wasn't difficult to pick up the reins and keep, he used to have a saying, do more of what works and less of what doesn't. And that's still what we're doing. And so far, so good.
Are you considering throwing your hat in the ring for the permanent position?
Still undecided. It's a big job. And this wasn't something that I always had a goal of doing. But we'll just read the need and see what happens. And I have a lot to look at and consider. I'm not quite 50 yet. I have a few years left to go. So I have to take a lot of things into consideration to make that decision.
Fresno Interim Police Chief Mindy Casto. Tomorrow night, several Neighbors Night Out events will take place across Fresno in collaboration with the department and the Neighborhood Watch program. And that's today's show. Thank you so much for listening. If you have feedback on today's episode or a story idea, email us at podcast@kvpr.org. It's only our second week of production here at Central Valley Daily. If you like what you've been hearing, help us build some momentum by leaving a 5-star rating in your podcast app. And even better, share the podcast with a friend. We really appreciate it. Today's episode was produced by Jonathan Linden and KVPR with support from the Central Valley Journalism Collaborative. I'm Elizabeth Arkalian. Find the latest local news anytime at kvpr.org.